Hey guys, Mr. K here for the Unit 2 quest. You're not just going to see all the answers in here. I am going to go over some of the answers, just some of them, but I will help you with the rest. So get paper and a pencil out, make sure your quest is loaded up, and let's get started. Pause at any time if I go too fast. All right, question number 1. Do you have any nicknames? Put down whatever you want to here. Obviously, some people have nicknames and some don't. This is also like if you're preferring to be called something different, this is where you'd put it. All right, so my nickname, for example, is Mr. K, which is not showing up. How about I make that black so you can actually see it, huh? Yeah, buddy. There we go. But it doesn't really matter. Then you put down your confidence level. Okay, seeing as how we're pretty far gone from this, your confidence level might not be very high. So maybe you want to just put the first 2 or 3, whatever. You can't get it wrong. Okay, you're getting a point for being honest there. Okay. All right, question number 3. This is our first real question, and it says the Pythagorean theorem is named after who? Now there's going to be 4 choices, and only one of these is correct. Let's get rid of the obvious ones first, okay? I know that I, Mr. K, did not create it, so let's get rid of that. Not that one. Bill Gates did not create it. So it's got to be either Pythagoras, a Greek mathematician, or P-Thag, a famous rapper from the 15th century. Guys, rap didn't exist in the 15th century, which means the answer is Pythagoras. Pythagoras is the one who's given credit for being the father of the Pythagorean theorem. He never actually said the Pythagorean theorem exists, but he laid the groundwork. All right, next, page number 3. What can the Pythagorean theorem be used for? I went to Google and I said, hey Google, what is the Pythagorean theorem and what is it used for? And you can see right here it says the Pythagorean theorem is used anytime we have a right triangle. We know the length of 2 sides and we want to find the third. So we know that it's going to be this one that says find the missing side of a right triangle. But it says select all that apply, which means there's probably more than one answer. Solving equations with 2 or more steps. Nope. It has nothing to do with solving equations. I mean, you do kind of solve an equation, but that's not what its purpose is. Opening a can of soda. Nope. Cooking pulled pork tacos. Nope. Determining if a number is rational or irrational. Looking at that passage again, right triangle. That has nothing to do with right triangle, so that would be a no. Determining if a triangle is a right triangle. Yep. We can use it not only to find the missing side of a right triangle, but also to figure out if a triangle is a right triangle. So there are 2 answers for number 4. Make sure you pick the 2 correct ones. Again, your order probably is different than mine. All right, moving right along. This is where you have to have your work. So get paper and a pencil out right now, because when you're done, you're going to send me a picture of your work. Okay? Take a picture with your phone or with your computer, with your webcam, and I want to see that you did your work. Okay? All right. So number 5 is we're finding a hypotenuse. So before we do anything, what I want to do is I want to turn off drawing. There we go. I want to, let's change this. There we go. Let's talk about finding the hypotenuse for a moment here, okay? Make this a little bit bigger. Okay. That's fine. Finding the hypotenuse. Now, there are actually multiple questions that use this. You're going to use this in number 5, 8, 12, 13, and 15. These are the steps you're going to use, okay? So step number 1, you are going to plug in the legs. Step 2, you're going to do the exponents. Step 3, you're going to add, which you'll find out more about in a moment. And step 4, you are going to do the square root. So you need a calculator for that. So if you don't have a calculator, you might want to get one out. You can just use the Desmos calculator. You can use just Google, although I'm not a big fan of the Google calculator, but the Windows one works as well. Okay, so looking at this, it says a right triangle's legs measure 10 inches and 24 inches. So before we do anything else, let me go ahead and just draw a right triangle here to make sure that we have this shape. This is not a right triangle. Can I make a right triangle out of it? No. How come they won't make a right triangle? Boo. All right, that's fine. I'll just use some lines here. Okay. Ooh, that's ugly. Let's go thick. Let's go. Ooh, let's use rainbow. Why not? All right. That's not rainbow. Oh yeah, it is. It's rainbow that way. I see. Fancy. Okay, so here is our right triangle. Okay, and we know the legs are 10 and 24. And I know that because it says so. Now remember, the legs of a right triangle are the ones that are perpendicular. They form the right angle. We know that the hypotenuse is always across from the right angle, and it's always the biggest side. Okay, so let's go ahead and follow these steps. Let me actually grab these guys and move them over a little bit. All right, step number 1 is to plug in the legs. Okay, we can do that. So actually, before we do that, let's write the formula down. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Why is that all background all crazy, guys? I do not know. Highlight, no color. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to plug in my A and my B. So my A is going to be, why does it keep highlighting that? That's silly. My A is going to be either 10 or 24, doesn't matter which. And my B is going to be the other one, whatever that might be. Can't see what I'm typing here. Don't know why it's doing that. No color. Okay. You know what? Let me change the background of this thing. All right, I switched my background to a light background. Here we go. All right, so now I'm going to do my exponents. So 10 squared is 100, and 24 squared, 24 times 24 is 576. Mr. K, you're a genius. No, I'm not. I just have done that problem a million times. But I don't want that there. I want C squared there. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and add. You see how they're on the same side? How 100 and 576 are both on the same side? I'm going to add them together. So that's going to be 676. And my last step is always going to be to do the square root. And for this, you need a calculator. Any calculator will work. And because this is the first one, I'm going to do it for you. The square root of 676 is equal to 26, which is equal to C. So the answer for number 5 is 26. You don't need to put anything else, just put 26. You could put inches, but just 26 is fine. Anytime we're finding the hypotenuse, we're going to use these steps. Now, number 6, it says, ooh, this one's a little bit different. This one says, another right triangle has a leg of 12 and a hypotenuse of 20. This time, we need to go kind of backwards, not really backwards, but a different direction. And this is how number 6, 7, and 11 are. Now, everything is the same with the steps, except for step number 3. Step number 3 is going to be to subtract. Because what you're going to notice is that on both sides of the equation are going to be numbers. We got to get them to one side, so we're going to subtract. Okay? So, if we follow these steps, let me go ahead and throw these over here a little bit, go down. All right, so step number 1. Write our formula. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. I consider that like step 0 because I just always write it down. All right, we're going to plug in a leg and a hypotenuse. Now this time, our leg, it tells us one of our legs is 12, the hypotenuse is 20. I'm just going to put the 12 in for the A. You could put it in for the B, it doesn't make any difference. So we've got 12 squared plus B squared equals 20 squared. Now you could have A squared plus 12 squared equals 20 squared. It would be the same answer when you get done. All right, so now I'm gonna do my exponents, right? Step number 2, exponents. So 12 squared is 144. And 20 squared is 400. So we're gonna subtract 144 from both sides, because I need to get the B squared by itself. So we're subtracting for step number 3. So B squared is equal to 256. And just like with the previous step, you need to do the square root of 256, and that will be your answer. Now we know our answer is going to be between 10 and 20, not like in the middle, but just in between, because we know the hypotenuse is always the biggest side. So if your answer, if you get like a really huge answer, you probably squared it and didn't square root it. If you get a really tiny answer, I don't know. It should be somewhere between 12 and 20 though. I know that for a fact. All right, moving on. Number 7 is just like number 6. So you're going to use those same steps that we used up here. So let me go ahead and just paste those for you. Those aren't the same steps. I lied. The steps to find a leg, there you go, right there. Now, it gives you the triangle, okay? So we know that A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And I know that A is missing. How do I know that? Look at it. It says so right here. Boom, right there, A squared. All right, so A squared plus 5.6 squared equals 10.6 squared. Now, how did I know that the 10.6 went there and not where the 5.6 is? Because it is the hypotenuse. It's the longest side. It's across from the right angle. So if you remember, I always drew a line, like an arrow, pointing like this, because the side across from the right angle is always the hypotenuse. And from there, you follow the steps: exponents, subtract, and square root. Now is a good time to pause. And when you're back, let me know. All right, you're back. Okay, so now let's move on to number 8. Number 8, look, it's a right triangle. They're all right triangles. And notice that this time we're missing C. We're missing the hypotenuse. How do I know that? Because the hypotenuse is always across from the right angle. So we're going to use the same steps that we used in number 1. 5, not 1. So we're going to use these steps. Let me bring them down here for you. All right, so you're going to plug in the legs. So we're going to plug in 19 and 23.5. So you're going to have either 19 squared plus 23.5 squared equals C squared. Or you can have 23.5 squared plus 19 squared equals C squared. And follow those steps. Do your exponents, add, and square root. But look what it says here, and actually here too. It says round your answer to the nearest tenth if necessary. And here it says round to the nearest hundredth. So for this one, let's suppose, this is not the right answer, but let's just suppose the answer was 999.123. And I said round to the nearest hundredth. Well, the 2 is in the hundredth spot. And the rule for rounding is to look to the right of the 2 to see if it goes up. right? So there's a 3 next to it. 5 or more raise the score, 4 or less let it rest. So this is not round up. So as I was saying before I was rudely cut off by the recording limit, was that this would round to 999.12. Make sure you know how to round. If you round incorrectly, you'll still get some points, but not full points. So don't be silly about it. Okay, number 9 and number 10, these are both on page 6. Both of these we're testing whether or not something is a right triangle. Okay, to test these, this is for number 9 and 10, we're going to use very similar steps to the ones above, but a little bit different. Okay, similar, not identical. All right, so let's start off with step 1. Step 1 is we're going to plug in A, B, and C, where C is the largest. Okay, because C is always the hypotenuse, so we got to make sure that's the biggest. So in this example here for not this example, this problem, we would have 9 squared plus 40 squared equals 41 squared. You're plugging all 3 things in. Step 2, we're still going to do the exponents. Okay? In fact, let me go over here and write side by side. So we've got 9 squared plus 40 squared equals 41 squared. And now we're going to do the exponents. So you might want a calculator, but 9 squared, that's 81. And then we got 40 squared, that's going to be 1600. And 41 squared is going to be 1681. Step 3 is we are going to add. So we're going to add the left side, which are the legs. Okay? That's going to be 1681 equals 1681. And the last part is just to see, is this true? If yes, the answer is yes, it's a right triangle. If no, the answer is no. Oops. The answer is no, it's not a right triangle. It's not a triangle. There we go. All right, so for number 9, the answer would be yes, because when we use the Pythagorean theorem, we get a true statement. Now you do the same thing for number 10 and see if you get a true statement. Okay? Now notice that these are like not in order, but we know that 24 is the biggest. So that's going to be the C. So you can just do this is A and this is B if you want to, it doesn't matter. Make sure you write out the steps. At this point you should have written out number 5 steps, number 6 steps, number 7 steps, number 8 steps, which I didn't write any of that out for you, and then number 9 and 10. And we're over halfway done, only about 5 left to go. All right, number 11. You are standing about 50 yards from the water tower. Okay, so here you are. You're way out here. Woo, okay? There is a 60-yard rope secured from the ground to the top of the water tower. How tall is the water tower? Round your answer to the nearest yard. So again, I want you to notice that there's a triangle there. And again, I want you to notice, look at that C. Look at that C, but look at 60. Isn't that right across from the right angle? Which means this has to be C. Which means one of these is A and one of these is B. So let's say A is missing. So you'll use the same steps as you used in number 7, because you're looking for a leg. So let's grab a copy of that for us. Go back down here. So here are the steps. We're going to plug in the legs, we're going to do the exponents, we're going to subtract, and we're going to do the square root. Oop, that's not plugging in the legs. We're going to plug in the leg and the hypotenuse. Sorry. Because C is the hypotenuse. So you're going to do, again, I would do a squared plus 50 squared equals 60 squared. Then follow those steps. Do your exponents, subtract, and square root, which you need a calculator for. Number 8. Oh, you ride your bike along the outer edge of a park. Then you take a shortcut back where you started. Find the length of the shortcut, round your answer to the nearest tenth. Remember the MMM number 7, I think? We had the 3 zombies, Zed, Eliza, and Addison. She's not a zombie, from the Zombies movie. And we had to figure out who was furthest away. Well, we had to use this method right here. We're looking for the hypotenuse of a right triangle. This is the hypotenuse. I know that because it's across from the right angle, which means one of these is A and one of these is B. I'm going to go back up to number 5, and I'm going to use those steps. I just realized I made a mistake. When I copied and pasted earlier, I didn't copy and paste. When I copied and pasted, I didn't change right here where it said plug in the legs, and that's frustrating. That's okay. All right, so here are the steps. Whoa. There we go. So we're going to plug in the legs. So 160. Do the exponents, 100 squared plus 60 squared, or 60 squared plus 100 squared, which would be, 60 squared is 3,600, 100 squared is 10,000, and then work from there. Round to the nearest tenth. If necessary, do not include a label. So we know for a fact that when you type your answer, you're not going to type meters or yards or anything like that in there. All right. Now, number 13 and then number 14 gave people the most problems. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get you started on this. You'll see, oh, that's all we're doing? Yep. This is going to be finding the hypotenuse. What we're going to do first is I'm going to draw a line from here to here and from here to here. Oh. That's not what I meant. You have to click it every time. That's annoying. They changed that. I need to email them and say, hey, change it back. They're like, who are you? And we're like, I am Mr. K, and I said so. You think they're going to listen? Probably not. Okay, I can't get it up. It's being silly. All right, wait, is snap to grid on? Is that the problem? Zero snap to grid? No, I don't see that. That's okay. All right, so we're going to count. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this thing is 7 tall. And, I'm sorry, yeah, 7 tall. And then 1, 2, 3 wide. So we have ourselves a right triangle. And we know the legs are 7 and 3. We're missing the hypotenuse. So we're going to use those same steps as we used before. Plug in the legs, do the exponents, add, and square root. I'm 90% sure that this one ends with a decimal, so make sure you round it to the nearest tenth. It is multiple choice. We know it's not going to be 49. That's way too big. So there you go. Number 14, same thing, except, oh, there's no drawing. How dare they? They didn't give us a graph. Let's graph that. -2, 3. Let me just grab my big old highlighter here. -2, 3 goes right about there. And 3, 0 goes right about there. So if we connect those together, and let's change to a different thing there. Oops. That's not a straight line. All right. Now I can make a right triangle. So I can go boom, boom. All right. So we got this one, we got 1, 2, 3 for the height. And the width is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 3 and 5. So again, we'll use the same exact steps as before. We're going to plug in the legs, which are 3 and 5. We're going to do the exponents. We're going to add and do the square root. Your answer should be bigger than 5 because it's got to be the biggest side, right? We're looking for the hypotenuse. So 3 squared plus 5 squared equals c squared. There you go. All right, the last question. You don't need to use the Pythagorean theorem to find distance of a horizontal or vertical line. True or false? Guys, we just found up here the length of a line by counting. We don't need it. So that's true. We do not need it to find vertical or horizontal lines. We can just count that way, only for diagonal lines. Okay? Bonus question number 1, if you've been paying attention and you looked at all the hints. Okay, this go-go is being held in a very famous city on the East Coast, in a very famous building, arguably one of the most famous buildings there. Number 17 is extra credit. Of course, this is extra credit too. But, just give you a hint here, perimeter is going to be when you add up all the sides. But the problem is, we have 2 diagonal sides that we do not know. So, if we know we can find the diagonal by using Pythagorean theorem, we can find those and then add the perimeter together, all the sides for the perimeter. See? But you got to show all your steps. If you show just the answer, I'm not going to give you points. All right, that's it, guys. Hopefully you did well. Email me when you're done so I can grade it, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. If I made any mistakes, please let me know. See ya.